It's my pleasure to introduce John Krout, presenter and newsletter contributor for the Potomac Area Technology and Computer Society in Virginia. John has been writing about creative uses of personal computers since the early 1980s. Now he also writes about smartphones, tablets, and digital cameras. He retired in 2021, which is this year, so welcome to the retired group. After working as a federal contractor software engineer for 30 plus years, lives in Arlington, Virginia with his son, many computers, digital cameras, and too many cats. Today, John wants to know if you've ever lost your smartphone or have any idea what to do if you would. Looking at the numbers, I think there's some people that probably would say yes and no. He will show us how to find your phone when it's misplaced nearby, how to prepare your phone to be found by a good Samaritan, helping that finder contact you, or by a bad apple to prevent the finder from using your phone and accessing its contents. And John will show you a very thing I didn't think about, how to convince the police that the phone in their custody is really in yours. So now I'll turn over the presentation over to John.
I'm going to give you a short introduction to the use of QR codes in this presentation. Each QR code is, of course, a quick way to provide information to access, such as a web page, a downloadable file. And at the end of this presentation, I even have a QR code for an email address, as I'll explain at the end. This is an example of a QR code. Most recent smartphones have a QR code scanner capability built in. We're going to look at that here in just a minute. Recent can be as old as my Samsung Galaxy S10. It was designed 5 years ago, and I know as of Android 11, it has a built-in QR code scanning capability. I'll mention if you have an older device that doesn't do what Android 11 or iOS 15 can do, you can download a QR code scanner app for free from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Let's take a quick look at how we do this with Android 11. First of all, you need to find the scanner icon in the shade menu. That's the menu that appears when you touch the top edge and pull down on your Android device. It'll appear something like what you see here. It may have multiple pages, and you can see the page dots at the bottom of the menu, but the one we want, at least on my phone, showed up on the bottom right corner of the first page. It's called Scan QR Code. Here I've magnified it for you. I've also circled where it appeared in the shade menu. Not necessarily in that same place on your device menu, but that's what you want to find. So when you tap that, here's what happens. A Scan QR Code screen opens, like the one you see here. What you're going to do is point those white corners, swing the camera, the Android device, so the camera depicts the QR code within those white corners. And once you do that, the device will scan the QR code and you'll see a pop-up show up, and it'll show options for the data found in the QR code. In this case, it was a web page address, and one of those options allows you to open that address in your web browser. So you just click on that and voila, you can see whatever the website is that is identified in the QR code. Now, iOS 15. I developed these instructions using an iPhone 10 that I bought recently. I found that the camera app is configured by default to act as a QR code scanner. So you start the camera app and you point the camera at a QR code. When you do that, the QR code appears at the top. The information summary appears at the top. If it's a URL, you can tap that information at the top to open the URL in the Safari web browser on your device. And you do not need to tap the shutter button. Other QR code scanning options. I mentioned my phone. The camera app also on my phone acts as a QR code scanner. I mentioned this a while back to Bill James, who's also a presenter for AppCug, and he told me that his Samsung Galaxy S21 does not scan QR codes using the camera app, but the pull-down shade menu does allow that. Older devices, as I already mentioned, you can obtain a free QR code scanning app on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. And here we are. Now we're going to get into our main topic. Have you ever lost your smartphone? Well, I'm assuming that you have. I'm not really asking the question, but I'm going to tell you ways to prepare to recover it. This was updated in the last couple of weeks for Android 11 and iOS 15. Originally, when I presented it a couple of years ago, we were at Android 8 and iOS 12, I think. And now we're going to talk about why you should care about this. Maybe you've never lost your phone, but think of these two sentences. First of all, your portable device is expensive. And second, your device contains vital info belonging to you, including financial accounts. So on my personal phone, I have apps that enable credit card and debit card use through the Google Pay app, and even apps to send instructions to my bank and my stock brokerage. I sure don't want a bad apple to use any of those. For many of us, it is the central source of life's important connections to family and friends and other important people like doctors, lawyers, stockbrokers. And there are IDs and passwords for accounts in the phone as well. My phone now contains over 100 account records for my use on various websites, including the ones for my stock brokerage. So it makes sense to protect your financial resources, contacts, and accounts, and your extensive effort to centralize all that useful info in that smart device in your hands. We're going to talk about 4 scenarios. Our host, John Kennedy, alluded to these. The first one we'll talk about is you have misplaced your device. It's someplace within your control, maybe in your home, maybe in your car. So we're going to learn ways to find it. Second scenario, your device has been found by a good Samaritan. And we're going to show you some ways to help that person contact you. Third scenario, your device has been stolen by a bad apple. So one of the things we want to do is prevent access to your phone by somebody who shouldn't do that. And it turns out there's a ton of ways for bad apples to make money off of a phone that hasn't been secured. So we'll look at how to make sure yours is secure. And finally, fourth scenario, the police have recovered your phone. They differ from Good Samaritans in one critical aspect. They want to make sure they hand it to the right person because their responsibility is not just to you, but to the community as a whole. So they don't want to be embarrassed by finding out that they handed it to the wrong person when the right person shows up an hour later. So for that, we're going to find out how to prove that the phone actually does belong to you. All right, now we're going to start with what I think is probably the easiest one, the misplaced phone scenario. It's somewhere in your house or in your car, maybe covered up under some clothes or whatever. There's 2 ways to find a misplaced phone or tablet. And just by the way, all the information here will also work with Android tablets and iOS tablets, iPads. You do not need to think of this as solely being operationally valuable for phones. First of all, there are websites that allow you to view the phone's location. And they may be accurate to within, actually, I have found often to within a few feet. You can also use the same web map that shows you where your phone is to make the device make a sound. You do not need to call it. If you find yourself in a situation where all you have is a computer or another portable device that is not connected to the phone network, as long as that other device is connected to Wi-Fi or some local area network, you can use it to force the missing device to make a sound. But to make this happen, you have to prepare. And you have to do that by enabling the behavior using the settings app on your device. Now, there's actually two different things you have to do. But before we get into the details, if you get too close, if you get close to the phone's location and you still cannot find it, you can also use another phone to call it, or you can use a website to force it to make a sound again if you want. And of course, because of the way GPS works, it's going to show you the location on a map, but if that location happens to be in a multi-story building like my home, then it's not going to tell you which floor it's on. So you're going to have to listen carefully. The first thing you'll have to do is enable location services, which means global positioning system, GPS. Now, I emphasize this because it is potentially a privacy issue. You have to decide if the advantage of finding your phone outweighs the risk of a large company, meaning Apple or Google, tracking the phone location. I'm going to assume you're willing to allow them to do that. So now we're going to look at step by step how to enable your Android 11 phone to find it on a web map. And after that, we'll do the same thing with iOS 15. First of all, to enable location services, you open the settings app, and in that screen, you find the word location. Tap that. You're going to find a switch. You turn the switch on. The second thing you have to do to enable finding the device using a web page, you go to settings. In that page, in that screen, find biometric and security, tap on that, and then tap on find my device. And at the very top of the find my device page, you will see a switch to turn on. Turn that on, that's all, and those two steps are all you have to do. Now, the website. When you need to find your device, you need to find the website that enables you to find your device. Here's the URL, and here's our first QR code. If you want to actually see an example of that web page, I'm going to show it to you in a moment. I'm going to find my own device. But if you want to actually see the web page immediately, please note that you have to use your Google account login to access the page. The QR code will be here on the screen for another couple of minutes. The map displays the last known locale of the device with an option to play sound for 5 minutes. And that sound will continue even if your device is for some reason set to be silent. However, it won't work if your device has run out of battery power. Now, when you do tell it to play the sound, what it's going to play is your default ringtone. Keep that in mind. If you use a very silent or intermittently silent ringtone, you may want to replace that with something that is a little more in your face. Okay, what I'm going to do now is do a swap into my web browser so that we can actually see an example of this. Let's see here. Show all windows. That's what I need to do. All right, where's my browser? There it is. So we're going to switch to that and go over here to find my device, which is the Google screen. And here it is. And it's found my device. It's within that circle that is displayed on the screen. And as it happens, my device is sitting right next to one of my two microphones for this presentation. So I'm going to tell it to play the sound. Here we go. right. I hope you heard that. I'm going to stop it. There we go.
We heard it.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate the feedback. I have to hide the floating meeting controls once again. There we go. Okay. Now you're going to see a couple of other options here as well. And one of the interesting things that, frankly, I hadn't even noticed until today, it'll even display the current amount of power in your phone. Now, when your phone is missing, that's a pretty useful thing to know because it gives you a rough sense of how much time you have left to find it. There's a couple of other things here we're going to discuss later, securing the device and erasing the device. Those are really more relevant when you're in a bad Apple scenario. But for now, this gives you a sense of how to use this. I already logged in before the meeting, so that's why I had this right on my browser to show you. Okay, let's go back to the slide set. Let's see here. What I'm going to do is switch back to the presentation. Let's see here. There we are. All right. So now we're going to look at how to do this on an iOS 15 iPhone. Like Android, there are two steps in settings to prepare your phone to be found. The first step is go to Settings app, tap on the Privacy heading in the main screen of the Settings app, and then tap on, in the Privacy screen, tap on Location Services. At the very top of the Location Services screen, there is a switch to turn on Location Services. Turn that switch on. Okay. Oops, I went too far. Let me back up. Now, the second thing you need to do is enable the phone to be found. Now that Location Service is on, you need to share that with the iCloud site. So here's what you do. Again, in the Settings app, you tap on your name, which is usually at the top. Then under the page that starts with your name, you tap Find My. And then in that page, Find My iPhone. And you can see that depicted on the right here. It has a switch also at the top called Find My iPhone. Turn that switch on. Once you've done that, you're ready. And here's the website for finding iOS devices, iCloud.com find. You will need to log in with your Apple ID in order to use it. I've provided that web page address in the QR code that's displayed here, and it will display the last known locale of the device and with an option to play sound. So let's go have a listen to that. I'll switch the share once again and go back to my web browser. Let's see here. There it is. Okay. Now I'm going to switch over to iCloud Find My iPhone, and here it is. And this thing has a timeout built into it so that I have to type in the password. Now, lucky me, you won't be able to see it. I found this was a little finicky when I tested it this morning. I may have to sign in a second time. We'll find out. Now, yeah, I do. Let's see here. There we go. And you'll notice there's two green dots on the screen. One of them, because I own two iOS devices. Let's see here. what I want to do is have it find my iPhone 10. And now you'll see on the left, we have options called play sound, lost mode, and erase iPhone. For now, in order to locate one that is within our control, but somehow misplaced, we're going to play a sound, and you'll hear it in a moment because I've put it by my other microphone here on my desk.
We heard it.
Good. Okay. Now, as I learned this morning, this also will notify me by email that that was used to find my iPhone. So that shows up on the email account associated with my Apple ID. All right. Unlike the situation on the Android phone, I have yet to find a way on the iPhone to change that tone. It doesn't appear to be the primary ringtone, but otherwise I have not yet been able to figure out how to make it a little more in your face. All right, let's switch back to the slide deck. Oh, there we go. Okay. And once again, I have to hide the floating meeting controls. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the Good Samaritan scenario. This scenario assumes that somebody has found your phone and would like to return it to you. So we're going to learn how to help them. First of all, something that works even when the phone is out of battery power, you can put a physical label bearing contact info on your phone or on its case. You can also put contact info on your phone's lock screen, enabling the Good Samaritan to contact you. This is something that I've done, and that's what we're going to talk about, because making a physical label really doesn't involve much computer work. I'm going to show you how I created an annotated lock screen photo for my two phones and how to display it and choose it as the lock screen. I call it a limited time offer because, as I mentioned, sometimes the phone battery runs out. The Good Samaritan might be able to recharge the phone. In that sense, the physical label is a little more permanent. So here's an example of an Android lock screen. The background photo is one I shot at an air show a few years ago. And what I did was add text to it. I blocked out the details of the email address and the phone number to call. I added that text using a free Android app named Add Text, and I've shown you the icon there so you can recognize it if you want to pursue this. Now we're going to talk about, I'm not going to demonstrate how to add the text. There's many ways to do that, but one of them you can do entirely on your phone using an app like Add Text. But now we're going to show you how to set the lock screen. Once you have created that annotated image, how to set it as a lock screen. For starters, you open the Google Photos app. The icon looks like what you see here. And you find and display the annotated photo. Now, in that display, there's an 3 dots in the upper right corner. You tap that, and a pop-up appears like the one you see here. Now, there's a menu of actions across the top of the pop-up. It scrolls left to right. It's not obvious here in a static slide image, but what you want to do is scroll across the choices and find and tap Use As, which I've circled here in this image. And then a second pop-up appears at the bottom. And in that pop-up, there's a button called Wallpapers. Tap that button. Again, I've circled it for you. The screen displays your annotated photo again. At the bottom is a button called Set on Lock Screen. If you have not yet set a home screen wallpaper, there may also be a button for that choice, but you definitely want to set your annotated photo on the lock screen. So you tap that button. And at that point, you're done. That's all you have to do. Now we're going to do the same thing for iPhones. This is an iPhone lock screen example. Once again, I've blocked out the details of the phone number to call and the email address to write to. I created this using an iPhone app called Add Text, and it had a 7-day free trial. It is not a free app. If you use it after the 7th day, then you have to pay money for it. But I only needed it for this one purpose, and then I deleted it. So that's something you can consider doing. Now we're going to explain with the photo, the annotated photo on your phone, how to set it as the lock screen. First of all, you open the Photos app. I've shown you the icon here. You find and display the annotated photo. Now there's a button in the lower left corner called the share icon. And I have kind of tried to mimic it here next to the words in the bullet point. You tap that icon and a pop-up appears. Here's the pop-up. You scroll down to find and tap the Use as Wallpaper choice, which I circled in this image. Then the phone displays the photo again with the Set button in the bottom right corner. I circled that in this image. You can tap that Set button, and Set As buttons appear. And here it lets you set the lock screen, set the home screen, and set both. You probably don't want to do that with an annotated image. Just tap Set Lock Screen, and there you're done. All right, now let's talk about options for the info that you include in your annotated photo. There's lots of different ways to put in a phone number that can be used when you don't have your personal phone in your hands. So a residential landline, if you work, an office desk phone, another smartphone, maybe your significant other has one, or maybe you have a company phone, which I did for many years. When I had my company phone, in each case on the lock screen, I put the number of my other phone, so that each one referenced the other. There's something else now that I'm retired that I'm using. It's called Google Voice. It's a free phone number, and you can use it either on your phone. You can use it in several ways, and none of them are exclusive. You can use it on your computer, on your phone, or even on a retired phone, as long as it's connected to Wi-Fi. So that's a very handy thing. For email, I suggest you use an account name not including your own name. Use something fanciful or nonsensical that you think up. And here are a couple of suggestions of places where you can set up a free email account. Yahoo still allows you to do that, and Gmail also. So those are some options for email. All right, that's it for the Good Samaritan, at least until we get to the police scenario. For now, we're going to talk about Bad Apple, and this too involves lock screen, but in a different way. Let's talk first about why the Bad Apple wants your smartphone. Often to place calls to other countries, and those get billed to you. To access your bank and stock brokerage accounts. To hijack your IRS refund, and that's been a big deal in the past few years, by the way. To sell the phone back to you, sort of think of it as a ransom, or to sell the phone to someone else. Lots of different motivations. So the lock screen, as I mentioned, is going to be your first line of defense. You need to secure your lock screen using a passcode, your face, or your fingerprint. And you can control how the phone identifies you for unlocking the phone through this technique of securing your lock screen. Now we're going to look at how you do that on Android and what your options are. First of all, to get to that, you open the Settings app. In that screen, you tap Lock Screen, and then in the lock screen, you tap Screen Lock Type. And this is what you see here on the right. It has several different options. No security, pattern, which offers medium security, PIN, which is another slight bump up in security, and finally password, which means alphanumeric. It's not just a PIN with numbers, but it is a combination of numbers and letters. That's what I'm currently using. If you have already set your phone's password or one of these other options, you will have to enter that in order to get to this screen. In addition to the four that I've already mentioned, there are, I haven't described pattern. Pattern is simply a way of moving your finger around on the lock screen. But you also have options in Android 11 for face and fingerprints. Face is, of course, done through the selfie camera. Fingerprints, if your phone has a fingerprint reader built in, you will have this option in Android 11. Mention what pattern means. It's not very secure, so I don't recommend it. Let's look at iOS. All right. Open the Settings app. In that screen, tap Face ID and passcode, and then turn passcode on. And you can create you can use a 6-digit numeric passcode, and you can also record your face to use instead of a numeric passcode. That is by far the more secure option. There's one other thing about that screen. After you turn passcode on, back in the Face ID and passcode screen, you need to disable all the features available when the screen is locked. So there are certain features that show up when the screen is locked, and you need to disable every one you can. I have yet to figure out how to disable the emergency phone call button, but other than that, I think you can deal with the rest of it by disabling the features. All right, and it goes without saying, you need to back up the valuable data that is on your portable device. So for Android, there's various apps exist on the Google Play Store for backing up your contacts, for instance. I use a password manager for all my account records. And the one I happen to use is Keeper Security. It's certainly not the only one available. The wonderful thing about Keeper Security is I can actually access all the data on the web, as well as on every portable device in which I've installed the app. I've got it on both the phones as it happens. It is available for Android and iOS. In iOS 15, of course, you're probably used to backing up everything using iTunes. You can also enable iCloud backup in Settings. You go to Settings, you tap your name, and then tap iCloud, and that allows you to back up to the iCloud.com site. Now, let's suppose that you have figured out with high confidence that a bad apple has your phone. Maybe you see it on the map in a place you've never visited, for instance. And what can you do in that scenario? Well, let's talk about them. Going back to the web map site, we saw these options. You can secure your device. That displays a message on the lock screen that has been secured. It can now only be opened by entering your full Google ID, including both the email address and the password. There is another one that's a little more drastic. Erase the device. That, aside from making sure that there's literally nothing on the device that can be used, it also turns off location services, which means you can no longer find it on a map. I do not recommend that. That's an extreme option. And like I say, it really only makes sense if you have another phone with the same information on it that you can activate or you have already activated. Apple, we mentioned, we've already seen the web map at iCloud.com/find. They offer something similar to Secure Device for Android. It's called Lock Mode. It locks the phone. It allows you to continue tracking it, and it requires your Apple ID, including the password, to unlock it. And yes, you can also use that site to erase the phone. I do not recommend that. As I said, it's extreme and only makes sense if you have another phone with all the same information on it. Now, another thing you might think of when you know your phone is off somewhere that you've never taken it, should you ask your phone company to disable the phone? And what I've concluded is maybe or maybe not. Now, here's why. It is about the same thing as erasing the phone in this sense. Doing so definitely prevents the bad apple from using the phone to place calls, at least using the phone network. But doing so eliminates all the options found on the web map for finding the phone, locking the phone, and erasing the phone. Because aside from GPS, the phone uses the phone network to communicate with the website that allows you to find it. So once you disable the phone, you're no longer able to track it. The company may be able to selectively block placement of overseas calls and other toll calls, but you have to take that up with your phone company. All right, that's pretty much all I've got to say about that scenario. Now we're going to come to the police. And this morning it occurred to me that I need to add a little point here. The police may have the phone because a good Samaritan handed it to them, or the police may have recovered the phone during an arrest or a criminal investigation. Because of that, and because they serve all the public and not just you, you have to think of the police as skeptical good Samaritans. They will ask for proof of who you are, such as a state-issued photo ID. Also, they may need to retain the phone as evidence, so you can't get it back immediately. Because of the evidence need, it's a very good idea to keep a retired phone around that you could charge up and activate quickly. And I think I just said all of this, didn't I? Yes, I did. Okay. Now, how do you convince the police that the phone in their hands is yours? Well, there's a number of things you can do. You have the password, for instance, to open the lock screen. You know names in the contacts list in the phone. You have the account ID to display the location of the phone on the map website, so the police can see literally that it's in their precinct office. They already know that, but you can prove you know how to show them that. Use the web map, which is what you use to display the location, to force the phone to play a sound. Use a phone on the precinct desk to dial your phone number, and the phone rings, assuming it still has battery power. And this last point, you know the phone's serial number. Well, guess what, folks? We're almost done, but I'm going to show you how to find the serial number. All right. How to find your device serial number. It's really simple in both cases. Android 11, open the settings app, tap About Phone, and you'll see your serial number. I blocked it out here because you don't need my serial number, you need yours. But you can do a screenshot of this and then copy that photo to your computer so you have a permanent record. And in iOS 15, you go to Settings, tap on the General heading, and then in General, tap on About. And again, you will see information about your phone, including the version of the OS that you're running and the serial number. Take a screenshot of that, copy it to your computer. And folks, that's it. Now, before I ask for questions, I'm going to mention my next presentation. I'm doing something new called Removing Bloatware from Android Devices on Saturday, November 20, 2 weeks from today at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific. This is for my local computer club, the Potomac area Technology and Computer Society. www.pataces.org is the website. But here I've provided you a QR code that will allow you to open your phone with an email already addressed to go to PatAces to request a guest pass for that meeting. So if you scan this with your phone, you can send a guest pass request right now and attend the meeting via Zoom on Saturday, November 20. All right, I hope I've given you enough time for that. And here's the official last slide. We're going to go for questions. I mentioned the My Local Club once again. And yes, you can even get in touch with me at the email address shown here. So that's it. I'm going to terminate the slide deck for now. And I'm ready for questions.
You do too good of a job, John. You got too many perfect screens and stuff. If you do have any kind of questions that you'd like to ask John, you can send them to the chat and I can ask them. Tremendous as always, with quite a bit of information and how-tos for both people.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I set out when I joined or rejoined the My Local Computer Club 4 years ago. I just decided, I am going to start showing people the kind of documentation that I would like to see. And that includes abundant screen captures so you can actually visualize step by step how to do things.
Been very helpful. And the Q codes are amazing new thing to make that easy. I've never heard about the one to do it so you can get your Zoom link that way.
I'll tell you okay, I'm going to answer Lloyd Lindsay immediately. If you go to www.pataces.org, that page also shows the email address. You have to send an email in order to access the November 20 meeting on Zoom. It's not just a matter of using a link on a web page. You will definitely have to send an email. So that's why I included the email QR code. The other QR codes are generated within LibreOffice apps. It's very easy to do as long as it is a URL. But for email, I had to use a website that gives options for generating QR codes with other types of information other than URLs. And this is the first time I've actually done that for an email address link. All right, John, go ahead. Let's look at some questions. Fire them at me.
That's why I said you've done too good of a job. All the questions are that people want your presentation. I keep telling them, yes, you'll get it. And, Lloyd's about wanting that. One person said they didn't realize these security features were available. This person has a OnePlus phone that does have a QR reader.
Yes, I started out reading QRs on a Samsung Galaxy S5. And that's when I found out that the QR code reader apps could be downloaded from the Google Play Store.